Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to our interesting webinar tonight.
So, hold on. I don't really know why all of us are here tonight.
Oh, Vincent, I've told you many times, and you still forgot it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I think I already know it. This webinar is about financial literacy for youth, right?
Yes, the title for this webinar is Who Wants to Be a Billionaire? And I mean, who doesn't want to be a billionaire? Am I right?
So, hi guys, my name is Vincent, and I will be an amazing MC for tonight.
Good to see you all tonight. My name is Fu Wei, and I also one of the MC for tonight. And let's introduce the girls. The first one, Libby.
And the second one is Vanessa.
And the one is Maria. Okay. Hey, this question looks quite familiar, right, Vincent?
Yes, I think actually I have filled up this question in the registration form for the webinar, right?
Yeah, we needed to ask you all this question to know where your knowledge is on this topic.
So the first question, do you know what financial literacy is?
It shows that majority of the participants do not know what is it, and I guess that is the major reason why you all guys are here tonight.
So next, do you think financial literacy is important? It shows that the majority of participants think it is important, right?
Wait. Why do most of them do not know the meaning of financial literacy, but still think that it is important?
So it means they think it's important without knowing what is it?
Oh, that's quite confused, right?
Yeah.
It's okay if you guys do not know the actual meaning of financial literacy. You all will understand after this webinar. Did you guys know that there are 2,668 billionaires all around the world?
So 86 of them are under 40 years old, and surprisingly, 12 of them are under 30 years old.
Yeah. In Malaysia, we have only 70 billionaires. Quite less number.
Yeah, quite less. So firstly, I would like to show you the billionaires. In Malaysia, billionaires we can found out as Ananda Krishan, and he is the owner of Maxis and also Astro in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, Telecom and Otakon Tan Sri Ananda Krishan is the fourth on the list of billionaires in Malaysia, with a net worth of value at $5.7 billion.
He inherited his father's career after his father passed away. With a net worth of $2 billion, Tan Sri Limkot Thai holds his spot among the top 10 richest people in Malaysia.
So before become a billionaire, firstly we have to learn financial literacy. What actually is financial literacy is the skills and knowledge of financial matters to confidently take effective action that best fulfills an individual personal, family and also global community goals. So why is it important?
The first one, awareness. Plan and monitor financial resources. The second one, goals. Able to do the things that you want to do.
So the third one is maybe a protection. It's well prepared for uncertain accident happens. And also lastly is the freedom from financial. You don't need to worry, and also you have a focus on others matters.
Okay, for the next slide, we will talk about house rules.
So firstly, you must mute your mic and secondly, you have to be polite and do not interrupt. And also lastly, be active and use chat or raise your hand to share questions or ideas.
And the most important one is, there will be a Slido link shared in the chat box. Please post your question there.
So we might enter to the Kahoot section, and so it's Kahoot time right now.
It's Kahoot time, okay? Please join this Kahoot by scanning the QR code or using the link provided. Okay, so for those who didn't didn't listen what I say, so please enter the Kahoot by using QR code or using the link provided at the chat box. Okay, we wait around 2 minutes. Okay, there are around 5 questions to test whether you guys understand or not. It's very simple, and I guess you guys, I think you guys should know the question.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, 1 more minute left. Okay, 30 seconds left. Do you think the question is hard?
I think it's easier for everyone. So it's quite general question.
Maybe Stanley also can answer.
Yeah. Maybe in kindergarten.
Okay, so without further ado, please start this question.
We will start the question right now.
So what is the answer? The first one, having a job that pays a lot of money. The second one?
Second one, I think it's having a job that pays a lot of money.
Oh, okay. So which is the answer? Which is the correct answer?
Yeah. Maybe you guys will find out by yourself.
Wow.
Oh.
I think majority of them know the answer.
Yeah. Having a lot of real estate properties. Not bad.
That's good. Proceed to the second question. So the guys, how life is good, okay?
How life is good, yeah.
So you guys
well done,
can study. The second question is, I do not need to be afraid of becoming a bankrupt if the first one.
So what do you think are the correct answer?
The guys, I cannot tell away.
Okay.
So
well, I guess I think it's the A1. I think I have many friends. Because friends, yeah, you can keep communicating with them.
Cannot now.
And you can borrow money from them.
So
you avoid bankruptcy.
Wait. Okay, so from this, we know that half of them pass the answers.
Yeah.
Rohan is good, okay?
Yeah.
So Rohan is the first way in this question. Proceed to the third question.
Yeah.
Which of the following does not allow me to receive income consistently? The first one, trading in cryptocurrency. The second one,
working as an employee in a company.
the third one, having fixed deposit that mature every month. And
so lastly is investing in a diversified portfolio of dividend shares.
Which okay, majority of them knows the answer.
Trading in cryptocurrency.
It's good, okay?
Not bad.
Okay, so, Rohan still the number one.
Congrats to Rohan again.
And the second last last question. It is generally acceptable to buy something as long as.
The first one is on sale.
Second one, my friend around me have it.
Third one is it within my plan budget?
And the last one will be, I had it for buying me.
Mostly of them get correct answer.
Okay.
Rohan again.
Rohan again and Haholai again.
Yeah, MVP. Yeah.
Okay, the last question.
Yeah.
Financial literacy may help me with the following except what?
Firstly is buying more stuff.
The second one is worrying less.
Third one is retire younger.
And the last one will be passing my exam.
Oh, maybe I could get 4.0 in my CPA.
Cannot.
Oh, passing my exam.
Okay, so this is the question, and congrats to the third person, Leeson.
Leeson.
And the second one, Hao Hao Lai. And the first place is who?
Rohan.
Rohan.
Congrats to Rohan.
Okay. Proceed to next slide. Without further ado, next welcome our speaker, Teh Yong Yuan, to present.
Hello everybody, I hope you have taken your dinner. It's a great honor to share with you regarding financial literacy. Give me a moment while I just put on my slides. So I hope you all enjoyed the introduction, seeing rich people around, but this is only one side of the story. The other side of the story is we need to start somewhere. And what is important here is, of course, we start with financial literacy. Who wants to be a billionaire? If you ask this question, you will see many hands raised. I can see some of them, I know them personally. Okay, some of them are here, some of them in KL. Wow. Yet we must understand the first question here is, how many zeros does a billion have? How many zeros does a billion have, you see? That is a difficult question to some of us, you see. Because if we do not know how many zeros $1 billion have, we will not know that we will reach there, you see. We do not know the journey there itself, okay? So these are some things we're going to learn today. But I need to tell you all to be clear, if you all think that we're going to learn many things, but to set expectations clear is, this is the focus of this evening's session. This is financial literacy for students, in my opinion, students, okay? Students are in a phase of life, okay, which are different from other people. You all are studying, therefore preparing to join the working world. Of course, when you all are studying now, we recognize college students is one of the last opportunities for you to have formal structured education at the end, unless you go towards postgraduate studies, you see. So, of course, I want to tell you all, this is not a session to be quick, rich, or multi-level marketing. There's no magic formulas or secret. But as students now, you have a great future ahead of you. A great future ahead of you, which I would like to use this session to prioritize, to tell you all of ways and potentials that you can focus on making money more than the details of spending. How to be rich, how to be happy, how to be rich. Of course, a billionaire may be very far away, but at least we start with $1, $10, 100, thousands, millions, and then billions, you see. How to be happy. We must understand that in the pursuit of wealth, we must not forsake our happiness. Otherwise, hey, it defeats the purpose. Of course, we must understand here financial literacy cannot neglect expenses. And I will tell you all certain things to take note of regarding expenses as well. While we focus on income, we need to be careful of certain expenses, but we do not go into details of expenses because we need more understanding of context. We need more time. It is not for this evening because it is a Monday night. Okay, so this is the focus of this session, to prioritize the crowd who are students and also on income. Because it is in income, we get to $1 billion. It is in expenses, we get to $1 million, you see. It is in expenses, we save money, we can become a millionaire. But it is through earning, we become a billionaire. Okay? And all the billionaire people, this picture is older. Only the young people here is Fu Wei and Vincent. A billion has, you can say 9 zeros. If you're funny, you can say 11 zeros if you put a dot and 2 additional zeros behind. Okay? There is practically, for today's session, there are 5 C's. You know, when we talked about Singaporeans or to get a wife or a girlfriend, they say you need 5 C's. You need a career, you need a condominium, you need cars, you need a club membership, and you need to have an unlimited credit limit, a credit card limit. However, that is another story, but for this evening, the 5 C's towards getting to a billion are: number 1, to calculate. Okay. Number 2, choices in life or your spending choices. Number 3 is managing your career. Number 4 is, hey, a company is our pathway to multi-millions. And charity, we must not forget about charity, because charity is important, not only part of being rich, but part of being happy itself, you see. There are 5 C's, which will first set foundation through the calculating and choices part. So there are 5 C's of financial literacy. I just want to like to see this number of zeros with a 1 in front, you see. If we get many zeros without a number in front, we are very depressed. But that 1 number in front, we feel very much encouraged. We need to start with point number 1. Calculate. The first C is calculate. It starts with calculating. It starts with budgeting. We need to know certain things regarding money. We need to know certain things regarding money. And knowing our money itself, we must have a plan for our money, you see. We must have a direction. Or else, if our money does not have a direction, it will be put into our pocket, but our pocket have holes. At the end of the day, we will notice, hey, where did all my money go? And worse still, we recognize that people are chasing for money that we do not have, you see. We must have a plan for our money. And in particular, we must know that this is money that we have, you see, not other people's money, you see. Okay? We see here, we must recognize that when people are billionaires, like when Vincent and Fu Wei, the host earlier, spoke about people, let's say Mr. Ananda or Uncle Lim, we must understand a difference here, you see. Mr. Ananda Krishnan himself made the money himself. Mr. Lim inherited the money and business from his father. And we recognize there are many other rich people elsewhere who inherited their money, but unfortunately, because of poor financial management, they waste it all and they have nothing left. Mr. Lim Kok Tai was smart, you see, and he continues to operate this business to grow. You see this empire that is now beyond just on a mountain in Genting Highlands, but also on boats and cruises around the world and many other hotels, you see. Budgeting is important because it needs to be intentional and proactive. We must take initiative, you see, and that we must recognize how much we are earning, how much you want to earn, and how do we spend it. Okay, managing your money, your finances. And we can talk a lot about it, yet we must recognize that, hey, it is best when it is written down. Why do we, point number 3, write it down as a record, you see, Once it is written down, it can be used as a reference, Yes, you can put it in a handphone, it is considered written down, but it's not like a number I try to recall off my mind. Okay? Because we must recognize there's one inflow, of course, our salary is coming in, or potentially multiple sources, if we have part-time income and so forth, but there are many outflows, okay, for ourselves, our household as a family, and so forth, you see. Budgeting, before we go to the next phase of what are the various aspects of budgeting, is foundational. It is the foundation to move forward, you see. Without this basic understanding, it's like, hey, we got money, but we don't know what to do with it, you see. And money itself can be broken down into income and expenses. These are flows of cash, you see. Flowing into somebody's pocket like yours, every month, somebody gives you money, okay? Every week maybe, these are called income. Then, unfortunately, some people spend differently. Some people are happier because they spend more. Some people are happier because they spend less. These are expenses, you see, which we'll cover shortly. Different kinds of income, different kinds of expenses. Yet we know that besides these flows, there are also material things or other things considered assets. And also what is the opposite of assets is debt. We must know this already. Then we are clear where our money flows. And we may feel like, this morning is accounting already. Now I'm someone learning more accounting. However, it is foundational. It may sound a little bit challenging, but I hope with various examples later on in the second half of the presentation, it gets more interesting, it gets more relatable, it gets more fun when you recognize that things are there within the grasp and your reach. We must understand that, hey, there are two types of income. Okay? The basic, we see at the very top, we put 0.01. This is the basic. We must understand before assets and liabilities and debts, we must look at income and expenses. There is active and passive income. There is active and passive income. And let me tell you that, hey, widely they say passive income is important, but we need to recognize that active income is very important for ourselves because our education teaches us to primarily seek an employment, do a business or have a job for active income. For active income. Okay? We work for money and that is okay. And of course, we ask ourselves later on, we will see, when we work for money that time, the employment grants us income, you see not? Whether we work for other people is okay, whether we work for ourselves, that is fine. As long as we work, we get money. Hey, isn't that good? We work, we get money. If we don't work, we don't get money. Better than no money. Other people may say, hey, passive income is important. Money works for you, you see. Yes, money works for you is a simple term, but we need to put capital down. And we must understand that investments grant passive income, yet it requires monitoring, you know. You need to monitor your business, you need to monitor your investments, you see. It is not to say totally no work and we just brush our hands, okay? Active income, you continuously work, it grants you money. Passive income, it grants you a small percentage of the investment. Income, money comes in to your pocket, you see. On the other hand, you see, we recognize a lot of things need money. Wow, money comes in your pocket once in a month. Okay? A lot of things go out through our pockets, you see. And we need to recognize two different kinds of expenses. Some of them are needs. Needs cannot run away, okay? If you are hungry, what happened? You need to feed yourself. So if you're hungry, you need to feed yourself. We must recognize now, is it just food to fill my stomach? Or is it food to fill my heart, you see? Okay, fill your stomach, then you go for something, rice, you need to eat to be full, you see, like dinner. Other times, you want to eat dessert, you see, that is rather more like a wants. Needs are necessities or necessary to live a healthy life. You need these things for a healthy life. Food, you cannot run away. Basic food, you need a roof over your head. You need clothes, okay? You need clothes to protect your dignity, you see. But you can also use clothes, the place you stay, and also food as a source of enjoyment, you see. Okay, to live more comfortably, you see. Want to enjoy life? Yes. You can go for holidays, have latest gadgets, you have better quality clothes, better quality house, and better quality food. But these are wants, you see. And we need to honestly ask ourselves sometimes, what are needs and what are wants? Okay? We can live without wants. We can postpone them into the future and therefore want something bigger. But we cannot run away from needs. Okay? Expenses, we have needs. We have wants. We can postpone our wants. We cannot escape from our needs. Now, we recognize here that there are assets and also debts, you see. Yet, we must also constantly remind ourselves that there are different types of assets, you see. There are financial assets, quantifiable, cash, shares, savings, and crypto. You can see the amount in your bank or in the platform. And there are other types of assets which are determined by market value, you see. Physical assets, property, cars, or your collectibles, you see. Physically, you can see them. You can sell them off. However, the third form of assets which are very valuable but subjective in value are intangible assets. We study so hard, we accumulate knowledge, you see. It has a subjective value to get a good job, to run the business well, and so forth. Or the friends we make, you see. This is called social capital. In such a way, when we have a network of people which we can rely on to get us places, you see. These are assets which are very hard to quantify its value. It is subjective. Yet, when we spend our money to acquire intellectual capital, to be smarter, or to build our network of people, connections, okay, we must recognize that it is an asset which we do not know its value. So it's okay. Now, we must look on the other hand. We can, of course, finance our expenses and our assets through debt. Debt is borrowing or liability, you see. And many people see debt negatively because we see red paint stories, people go splash red paint on people's houses for people owing money. We don't like the bank to profit from us, you see. However, borrowing money does allow us to enjoy something now instead of the future. And that may be okay if it is a good form of debt. Funds for income and savings, you see, set aside to fund an asset, such as a house. Instead of now spending money to pay rent, you can buy a house. Okay? And a house now has an asset, will appreciate in value. The value will increase, you see. Just to tell a story as an example, 15 years ago, when I first started to work, I wanted to save money on my rental and I bought a low-cost flat. So for 500 ringgit rental, I decided to buy a cheap flat of 80,000 ringgit. So instead of paying an owner of a flat, now I paid the bank for the money I borrowed of 80,000 ringgit. I slowly paid the bank, and now the flat I am in after 15 years now has grown from 80,000 ringgit to 120,000 ringgit. We must recognize what assets will increase in value. That is an important point. And recognizing which assets increase in value, we will then know which will take a loan. Now we see another example is PTPTN study loan. We recognize now that with a degree, we will earn 2,000 over ringgit. Without a degree, we will be potentially at minimum wage of 1,500. Therefore, getting a study loan may be worthwhile because we have the opportunity to have a higher income with our degree. So when you borrow money to study, make sure you also complete the course. Okay? Then you can have a higher income, a better life. However, that on the other hand, there are bad loans. You buy items that lose value, you see. You finance once to go on a holiday, a lavish dinner, you see, you swipe your credit card. Buy shoes, which is for a caterpillar. Or you go into take up many loans until you cannot afford the repayment, you see, to pay back the bank. You think that, hey, you should buy a lot of houses, borrow to invest, and you cannot repay back the loan. Now this is trouble. Okay? You buy a car, beyond your salary, cannot afford it. You go on holidays, and you cannot pay back. Or you buy toys. Toys, for information, you must keep them for around 50 to 100 years. Only it becomes an antique, then the value is up. Otherwise, it depreciates. Knowing this is important. Okay? We recognize that, hey, I stands for income, E stands for expenses, inflow and outflow from your pocket. And from there, we recognize assets and debt accordingly. Okay? These four are the accounting or budgeting terms which we will go on from segments 3 to 5 later on to see how does it affect these income, expenses, assets and debt accordingly. Okay? Yep. Okay, just reading a message to see. So, when registering the time, we ask a question. Is your monthly pocket money enough, you see or not? Enough. And then we see in red, 65% say no. What does that actually mean as an example? Why do you say you don't have enough? It's because potentially your expenses now exceed your income. You potentially have 800 ringgit or 1,200 ringgit of allowance, but hey, you spend 1,500 or 2,000 ringgit or want to spend that. And that's why you say you don't have enough money, you see. The second example here to differentiate income, expenses, and now asset and debt, we say, have you ever experienced a lack of money? Have you ever experienced a lack of money, you see? Money itself is an asset. Okay, I have money in my pocket, I have money in the bank. That is your asset, you see. And when you need it that time, then you will spend accordingly from your assets, your money in your pocket, you see. However, when you experience a lack of money, means you don't have enough money, means potentially your debts is more than that, or you have no longer have any more assets, you see. You no more cash, means you don't have any more assets, you see. In another situation, your lack of money is when your debts are more than your assets. Okay? So just to shape all this down as we go into the second point, which can be stretching for a Monday night. It can be challenging for a Monday night. But why this section is important is we recognize, wow, 你讲得很好听, whatever you say is very interesting, you see. But the context we are in, the environment we are in, actually already influence us to make a lot of choices subconsciously. And we assume these choices to be good or bad accordingly, you see. But we must recognize, hey, where the influence come from in our financial choices. Okay? There are two factors or two forces that affect our financial choices. It can be internal, you see. Internal means our personal characteristics, what we want, our preferences, our decisions. It's all about us. We decide ourselves, you see, as an individual. However, this is potentially limited by external forces and factors which are around us, you see, beyond ourselves. And these can be cultural aspects, family influence, or potentially where we are born in, you see, in Penang, in the country, and therefore recognize in this environment now, we have limitations and also opportunities. Limitation means, hey, the money in my pocket now is ringgit. It is not US dollar, it is not Singapore dollar, it is not pound or whatever. Yet also we recognize in Malaysia certain things are at certain prices. We must recognize that. External factors have greater influence over our financial well-being. Okay? External factors are very, very strong, you see. Okay? And these external factors can be called institutional influences, which we'll cover. The next point is lifestyle choices. The third is risk and return. And these institutional influences will shape the way we see things. Of course, in a theoretical sense, institutional theory speaks about certain aspects, resilient aspects of social structure. Now, social structure talks about we do not live as an individual, but in an environment with other people. And because we are in an environment surrounded by our family, our neighbors, and our country, our race, and so forth, they have influences over us that establish a guideline for our social behavior. So they will influence us to say this is good behavior, this is bad behavior. Okay? So for example, there are formal and informal institutions. Formal institutions usually are written. They are written down. And these dictate behavior that are good and bad. These can be in laws, these can be in contracts. On the other hand, there are informal institutions that are tacit. They are such as culture, you see. So Chinese culture is not really written down, but we know what is right. Chinese New Year that time, please wear red, don't wear black. Funeral that time, please wear black, don't wear other color. What is acceptable, what is not. Okay. Chinese culture means studying hard and being smart is usually treated up with high respect and so forth. Religion is part of it. You see, customs and tradition also influences us to now see money in certain way. Okay, so while we talk about income, expenses, asset and debt, how we appreciate them more is influenced by these things, you see. Okay, and next thing now we must also recognize is this, okay. We must recognize that while we have money, this I'm trying to build a foundation, is that we need to understand the difference between standard of living and quality of life. So we must not get this confused because this is potentially what makes us happy, you see. We can still be rich, have materialism, but yet not be happy. And many of us here want to be a billionaire, but I believe more of us want to be happy, you see. Okay? This now I don't know how people raise their hand. All didn't raise their hand, but if you ask again who wants to be happy, I believe that number will be more, you see. Standard of living talks about a quantifiable term to refer to wealth, comfort, and material goods, you see. So we can see low poverty, high GDP, and high economic growth means that there is high standard of living. We see now, for example, we look at Singapore. Many people like to go to Singapore. to work and stay, you see. But that is for standard of living, you see. That is for standard of living, you see. They have very good infrastructure, very good education and so forth. Everything is taken care of. But are they happy or not? You must ask that question. Singaporeans are not really the happiest people there. Very competitive and so forth, you see. Then on the other hand, now to make the comparison clearer, we see quality of life. And it is subjective, you see. Okay? Now, potentially, some of us here with lesser money will tend to be happier, you see. Because, hey, I have freedom, I have my rights. We see here that a lot of people potentially are happy in Malaysia because, hey, I can choose my government. I can vote during elections. If I go now to another country to work, I cannot determine the future of my country. I have lost my rights, you see. And as a result, freedom, rights, and equality increases our quality of life. We are happier because of this. Yet, we must understand that the way they talk about quality of life is hugely a Western perspective. We as Chinese, or we as Asians and Malaysians, have a slightly different quality of life. In a cultural sense now, we must see, okay, Westerners tend to be more individualistic. So equality and so forth are very important. Rights, individual rights. A quality of life is more important for an Asian context or Malaysian or Chinese is when we talk about community. You serving the community makes you happier. Serving the community here refers to, now, not necessarily only giving donations, you see. Doing a good deed, you see. Spending time with family. It's something which Asians appreciate more. So, quality of life is hugely subjective to the individual level, it is affected by a personal preference, upbringing, education, and workplace, you see. So we must always look at this. While we can go overseas to work, we are quickly changing the computation for standard of living, but quality of life, we can still get good quality of life at a particular space when we are very happy. Some people go to the village, you see. Some people like planting, farming, so they go to the village. So we need to be clear. And who shapes our quality of life sometimes is the people around us the most, our family, and so forth. Okay? So try to survive there already. And to give you an example is now, to combine formal institutions and informal institutions, we can see that when we talk, I gave you an example of Singapore, we can give you another example here is minimum wages and taxes. These government dictate and how minimum wages and taxes affect our income. Minimum wages means you earn minimum amount. In Australia, it is very high. In the US, it's very high. Per hour, you're earning $34 or 35 Australian dollars. So it's very high. It's dictated by law, you see. Taxes overseas can be very high, it can be very low, but these are dictated by law. As a result, the standard of living is determined as such, you see. Yet, quality of life here, we can see it's not hugely dependent on income, expenses, asset and debt to the outside people, but to an individual which, hey, how much money are you happy to have? Are you satisfied with your job or not? And so forth, you see. So, draw a comparison to be clear. Why is this important is also that as we move forward with examples, we know, hey, it is okay to have less now, but I'm happy. I need to know that I'm happy now, okay? And I appreciate the moment, and the future time, hopefully, I'll put myself in a position to appreciate what I have now so that I can grow to be richer in the future as well, you see. The next point is about risk and return. And the survey we ask, what is your purpose of saving money? And some people in red, which do not have a percentage, have already thought about the very far future, about retirement itself, you see. Some other people will talk about future goals. And in terms of future goals, it can be talking about buying the new iPhone in a few weeks' time. It can be talking about going on a holiday after your exams. It can be talking about going for a nice meal. Or it can be something bigger, you see. But some people also, in yellow, in the 28%, recognize, hey, I need to save money for emergency, just in case my car breaks down, you see. Just in case I lose my handphone, but this is an emergency. Some people have no idea, which is okay. But now we recognize we have determined a purpose for your money, which is very good. And of course, we don't just want to sit there, you see, okay? The money doesn't sit in your pocket. You will potentially place this money in one of these investments, you see. In banks, tend to lean towards emergencies. I do not know how many of you will buy properties, but let's say in the future, that time you can buy apartments, houses, and so forth. I hope sooner than later. Or you can buy mutual funds, you see. Okay? Or you can buy small number of shares. With less than 1,000 ringgit, we can buy shares already. And I know in class, several students actually buy shares. And while we recognize here that shares may not always make money, but at least by investing in these various instruments, we recognize and learn what type of person we are. Okay? Lastly is, of course, penny stocks and cryptocurrencies. They are stocks, they are cryptocurrencies, we recognize them. But what the difference here is also, if we look to the next slide, is now the upper level instruments or investments tend to be lower risk. Bottom ones are higher risk. And to say which is better than the other is, again, subjective. Greater risk means greater returns. Greater risk means greater returns, you see now. So we must also, in addition to that, consider of these assets now, which one do we want to convert to cash quickly? Cash in bank, we go to ATM now, we can take it out already. Okay? Shares and so forth, we must wait for the market to open, then only sell and potentially sell at a loss. Property, it takes a very long time to sell off to convert to cash. Therefore, if emergency, what kind of emergency and when do we need money? We need more liquid assets on, you see now. Okay? Another thing here is the barriers, the down payment, the capital. Smaller amount of money like FDs and so forth, you can put it in savings account fairly with any dollar amount, you see. But some of them you need hundreds and thousands. These are shares and crypto. But if you have tens of thousands, you can look at property per se. Okay? And then we recognize, hey, when we buy this kind of instruments and invest, now, the fourth point is timing of income they pay for passive income. Wow, we are having passive income. Do we now look at receiving it only at a monthly basis, or we need to sell the whole asset? Shares for capital gain, some of them, or for dividend, we look at them. Cryptocurrency, it is one-off, you see now. We need to sell the whole stock in order to derive its profits. What we must also understand here is, it is hugely preferential. Some people have high risk appetite. Some people got no risk appetite at all. What I put in, I must see at the end of the day what I have left after a short period of time, you see. Okay? So, what I would like you all to also know is, sometimes you may think ourselves to operate differently, right? Okay? Sometimes you will see yourself to operate differently, right? So, traditionally, when I started to invest in stocks some time ago, I thought I would be a low risk taker. A low risk taker, don't take risk one, but looking at dividend stocks. So stocks that don't change the price or loss, but looking at to derive its annually or half annually dividend income. However, later when I buy stocks that time, I recognize that, hey, actually my risk appetite is more because shares are not a huge sum of money, a few thousand ringgit, and therefore I'm willing to trade and willing to lose some occasionally in order to derive a higher income through buying and selling of stocks. So you need to ask yourself and test yourself to see with small sum of money, hey, whether do you like it? So these kind of things, you need to test it along the way. But very importantly is the last point. Beware of scams. JJPTR, whatever, gold investment, whatever. If it's too good to be true, be careful. Take less risk and go for a lesser return investment. Okay? So be very careful. A lot of Penang people unfortunately fall for scams. Why do they fall for scams? Because, hey, greed is one of them. But also connected to poor financial literacy. When you have poor financial literacy, a person has poor financial literacy, they do not understand the mechanisms of how income is derived from, you see. Okay? So be very careful. Risk and return. So, Financial choices are determined also by institutional influences which shape our lifestyle choices, whether it's standard of living or quality of life. And of course, we looked at risk and returns. These two will set the foundation for we look at the next phase for around 15 minutes to around 20 minutes on the examples we look from a career perspective, company and charity, as we look at how the income, expenses, assets and debts actually shift or draw upon towards these different areas. Okay? Bear with me. I just want to check everybody's okay now. Career is something that all of us face, but some of us are fearful of, you see. Why are we fearful of getting a job, you see? Because one of them is we do not know what the future holds. Number two is, hey, unable to meet expectation of our own self, of our family, or of our boss. But let me assure you today that if you're here and you're in TARUC, you are on the right track, okay? Finish the race and get any job itself. Get any job already. Consider it a small win to see how can you position yourself better in the future. The first job is very important, you see. Okay? In the questions we had earlier, we talked about saving habits. Do you have that? We also talk about overspending your money for social purposes. And a lot of people, more than half, said there is this tendency. Now we recognize that as a student, we have certain spending or financial habits. Financial habits here involves savings. It involves also spending. Okay? Now, this is the challenge. So, we must recognize this is the way we operate. And some people think that after they are working, they will change their financial habits accordingly. Okay? They are saying something like, if I never save, when I start to work, I will start to save. Now I overspend my money for social purposes. When I start to work that time, I won't overspend because I have more money. It is the same person. Okay? It is the same Teh Yong Yuan. It is potentially the same Fu Wei. It is potentially the same Vincent. Okay? So you don't change your habits. So be very careful already. You must be very careful about how you manage your money accordingly. And we now, when we get a job, we potentially, one of the first things that takes place is now, previously we have 1,000 ringgit, around 1,000 ringgit allowance. But when we start to work, we have 2,000 ringgit or 3,000 ringgit salaries. We may think our income increases, but our expenses automatically also increase. Subconsciously, or money will go through various places because expectations now change. So be very careful about these things, okay? And these are some potential problems which you will face, okay, in your first job. And we must be prepared for them. Now, some of us may be less fortunate and therefore enter a job with lesser salary. We need to be careful here, okay? In the sense that why are we taking up this job now is we need to justify that while my income, the I, is lower now, we are taking this job to accumulate experiences. And this experience now for your first job is important as a stepping stone for your next job with a higher pay or promotion or starting your own business. Okay? So we need to be careful about this first scenario. It is okay to take any first job even though it's lower pay, but recognize here what is the experiences you are gaining accordingly. You see now. Okay? The next point here is in your job that time, we need to consider the stability of your income, you see. While we now potentially have increased our expenses, is our income also consistent or it will fluctuate accordingly, you see. If we're taking a sales job and we have commissions, you see, okay? Now, in months that our sales is better, we will get higher salaries. When months that are lower, we will get less commission or no commission with a very basic salary. With that unstable income, are we still able to repay expenses that need to be repaid every month? Our car loan will never run away. Our housing loan potentially. So we need to be careful about these things. In our first job, if we're not sure about our salary that time, don't get yourself so highly geared in liabilities or debts or loans, you see now. Manage our expenses carefully according to our minimum salary, not our average salary or our highest, most best performing month, you see now. Be very careful. In our first job, suddenly we have many dreams and many wants suddenly appear. Everything of a need, everything suddenly we think, suddenly I need a smartphone, an Apple phone. I need a smartwatch. Everything also need. Okay, but it's actually a wants. Be very careful about it. And as a result, we overspend. I really need a Starbucks. You see, all these kind of things come about. We think that because our upgrade in status now, from a student now to an employee, the first job, our ego also becomes bigger, our brain becomes bigger, and now we overspend. We go into higher gearing and debt. We need financial literacy and discipline in your first job. And if you get that right, in the future, when you manage bigger salaries that time, you can succeed to be richer and accumulate wealth rather than become poorer, you see, because of debts. Okay? Now, we must also understand that it is very common that working itself, we will also do a side hustling, a side job. Hey, it is perfectly fine, you see. It is the way the world functions now. These days, in the morning, they have an office job. At night, maybe they drive a Grab. Or they sell burgers, you see. Or sometimes they run pasar malam. It's all okay. It's nothing to belittle people off because, hey, better than sit around and spend money, better go and work and earn money. No, that's the way to think about it. Okay? There are several advantages of side hustling and we must appreciate it and compare it with the negative aspects about it. Side hustling will make you have more income. Okay? Will have you have more income, more money. Side hustling is also good. And I sometimes tell students in my class, hey, you do business one, you got side job while you study. You learn about the business itself, you learn about yourself, you see. So, learning, we talk about intellectual assets. So, we build our intellectual capital or assets accordingly. So, when we do a side hustling, it teaches suddenly we need to manage our own money rather than our boss manages the business money. We do not know many things. So, we learn accordingly. In the current day and the future, we must recognize that we live in a gig economy. What does this mean, you see? Increasingly, a lot of people are becoming freelancers. So, you see, while they are they have a PR job in the morning, potentially they are doing graphic design as a side hustling job, doing social media posts for people as a side hustling one. This prepares the person to be a freelancer. A lot of people now becomes a freelancer. This is the gig economy, you see. They are predicting like by 2030 itself, 50% of individuals will be in the gig economy. So, it helps you position yourself better when you do a side hustling. These are some advantages. But of course, there are disadvantages. That's why people go and scold people, don't go and do these part-time jobs. Why your boss don't like it? Because it distracts you from your main job. And for a long time, let me tell you this, while I was working in an accounting firm and in public bank, in a bank, I didn't believe in side hustling. Why? It's because it will distract me from doing my job well. It will really distract you. However, we must recognize also of its benefits earlier. So, if you have free time already, then consider, but otherwise it will distract you from performing your job well. You will be dissatisfied with your performance on the job because it deteriorates accordingly. Know that as well. If you're a perfectionist on your job, maybe don't do side hustling. Potentially it's not worth your time. Go and drive Grab, how much money can you earn? Yes, you can earn a few hundred ringgit, but is it worth your time or not? Okay? And number 3, hey, tiring one lah, friend. Tiring one, work is tiring one. Okay? So tiring already, can your body take it? If you get sick already, then it's problematic. So consider the pros and cons as you explore side hustling. Is it for you accordingly? Okay? Sometimes try it out, then only recognize no, you see. Now, this is a very important point, which is work-life balance, you see now. When we talk about a job now, we recognize, hey, work-life balance is important. Now, these days, it is common for big companies to talk about work-life balance, you see. And in such a way, work-life balance here is talk about income, but also potentially try to subsidize some of your expenses along the way if the company offers certain benefits, you see. we must understand now that in our job itself, we must have work-life balance, which is a hugely subjective and personal thing. It is not potentially determined by your boss. It is potentially determined by you yourself, your spouse, your children, and your family, you see now. So we go into a definition of work-life balance to see things clearer. It is an individual's ability to meet their work, family commitment, as well as non-work responsibilities such as rest, leisure, responsibilities, and activities. So things given by the employer may include these examples: working from home, flexi hours, huge amount of leave to rest or to take care of your children, childcare, the parents can bring the child to work, or membership, so you're going to have fun at certain clubs and so forth. This is important because while we talk about earning a lot of money, standard of living, work-life balance is about quality of life. And some people now will decide their work-life balance away from their employer. It is not from the company to decide my work-life balance. It is up to me and my family. And in such a case, they potentially will decide to work less, earning less. Okay? And also potentially with earning less, they will control their expenses accordingly. You see. So just to give you an example, if you are a performer in your job, your boss is more likely to grant you more trust. And as a result, grant you more trust to potentially take work home because you will do it accordingly, you see. Okay? So when I was working in an accounting firm, my boss was really kind to allow me to work half days at slightly lesser pay in order for me to pursue my master's. And then I got my PhD. But my boss trusted me to get the work done. Not say I will work already, then the work doesn't get done, you see. So trust is important and it allows you to focus on other aspects and responsibilities which can be family or non-work. Working only can get you to become a millionaire, you see, at max if you save a lot of money, you see. Okay, hundreds of thousands you make along the way. But now, potentially, we will try to push our potential because we have it to start a company. If bear me now 10 minutes, then I will end, you see. A company. So the next part we'll look at now, financial literacy is important at an individual level. If you can manage your finances, then you can look at managing a company now, the finances about it, so you can reach your millions and billions, you see. Why do people start companies? We look at the first point. It is out of necessity. Potentially they are dissatisfied with their work. That's why they start a company. It is because they don't have a job. Recession comes already now. Potentially as a result, unemployment, they open their own business. Okay? Misfit of job scope. Suddenly, due to they have a specialized skill which they cannot find a job, as a result now, they operate by themselves. They are a carpenter, a plumber, technical, a hairdresser. These people now set up their own companies and businesses along the way. So recognize this. Of course, now, some people who are more comfortable can pursue opportunities or pull factors. They set up their business because they're passionate about some things. So as I recognize now, my income is more stable. I don't have a lot of liability. I'm passionate about social change. So I'm looking to set up a business, creating systems, okay, or various projects now to help create social change, you see. That is why, besides I'm teaching part-time, and this is what I try to push myself upon. It is also, setting up a company gives you a sense of achievement and recognition. You feel good doing something, you see. Doing something for yourself. Hey, you set up a company, it is the pathway to become rich. You learn along the way, setting up a business, you see. At least you try it, then you know it, you see. So these are reasons for you to set up your company along the way, okay? But there are challenges as well, you see. If you can't manage your own money, better don't start a business, okay? Because things will get bad and it will affect others as well. The challenges of a business is, how do I derive profits? How do I derive profits, which is essentially income minus expenses? You see? Okay? So I'll try to end soon. So we recognize that we must have sufficient income, high costs and expenses also. Okay? Have sufficient income, manage our expenses along the way. And if we need money to start a business, borrowing is not bad one, you see. Manage them because we want to increase our assets. By increasing our assets, we can increase our income along the way. Doing a business requires you to take risk. And while you take risks that time, of course, it's an opportunity to grow the business along the way. Running a business is also important because it is an opportunity to hire others along the way, you see. Okay? Opportunity to hire others. And when you hire others, you create employment and an income for others. Okay? Can the host give me another 5 minutes or not? Or you give me a number, then I'll know how long I have. Okay? As I wind down certain things. You run a business now, you borrow money, you manage it well to grow your business. It is your pathway to go richer. You need to hire people also because you need people to provide quality services, quality manpower. Talent costs money, you see. Okay? But as I wind down, I know I rushed through the 2 other points which actually are more for the future sense to set up a business now. We must understand now that charity is tremendously important and to our financial management, especially to recognize how much we have, you see, and sharing it with others, you see. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never ever have enough. Oprah Winfrey said this, if you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never have enough. And all of us recognize, hey, we will never have enough because we are always short of something, you see. Young as we are, we must potentially try to train ourselves to give up time, we should potentially forgo money, you see. As I recognize now, instead of getting a better job, I put myself in the position to teach students because I recognize that it's an opportunity here to serve others as well, you see. Instead of working in a corporate life or in a big four, earning potentially 10s or 20,000 ringgit, having a smaller salary now in order to share my experiences, my knowledge with other people around me, you see. Sharing with others. Time means you forgo money. Okay? You can also share your money, your assets, or you give donation as an expense. We must recognize a lot of people are worse off than us, and they are in need, you see. And we, by doing a small deed, even though it's $1, we help elevate their life, you see. And when we compare with them, we recognize, oh, 这个人没有家的, well, this person no house also. Wow, I got house. Wow, 这个人, this person, wow, kasut dia koyak terus. Oh, the shoe got one big hole. We also now got shoe at least. Rather than Nike or Puma or whatever, at least we got shoe, you see. So by sharing with others, we recognize that we actually have more. Oprah Winfrey said earlier, if you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never have enough. Okay? Be thankful for what you have. You will end up having more. So when we compare with others, I got shoes and I have a nice pair of shoes, we will be thankful for that. And we recognize we have more than people with others, you see. So charity positions our mind to recognize what other people lack and recognize what we have for us to be grateful. And by giving to others, we elevate them as well. 3 more slides, then I'll end. One of the questions we ask, you see, if you saw both $1 and 10 cents beside the road, which one would you take? I do not know the host would come up with such a creative question, which is kind of interesting, Okay? Then, I scratch my head, then we see the answers. Afraid got ghosts, got Kong Tao on this money, whatever. Kind of interesting. But let me remind you about whether is it $1 or 1 cent. Financial literacy starts with that one, You must start to count with 1, only you can reach 2, 3, 4, 5, 100, 1,000, 1 million, 1 billion, you see. You need to recognize to calculate accordingly, you see. Whether you decide now, with this money you have, how you want to position it, that is step 2. Okay? At the start of this session, we spoke about now that this session is for students to prepare ourselves for the future, especially now, what is the future ahead to grow our income potential. But be careful of our expenses, not such that we overspend for it to be a distraction from how can we perform well in terms of our work, such that we can have a bigger promotion or even a better future in terms of job or starting our business, you see. Expenses and what to be careful of are warnings accordingly. Okay? If you have more questions about expenses, we can ask them in the Q&A or arrange for another session accordingly. I think this is the last slide, just to have a conclusion. Not to say that $1 billion have 9 zeros and 2 zeros behind the dot, but it starts with budgeting, calculating what you have, whether is it 1 cent, $1, knowing which is an income, expenses, asset, and debt accordingly. Be aware of our financial choices. Our financial choices are shaped potentially by the people around us, you see or not. Our family will say, oi, 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 5,000 ringgit only is considered good salary. Our parents say so, then therefore 5,000 ringgit is a good amount of salary. Some people may say 20,000 ringgit. So we must know who influences accordingly. Now, we must, as we step into our career, our first steps matter. We have now more income. We must manage our expenses well so that we don't have more expenses than what we earn, you see, as we start our career. Now, we start our career, our first job matters. The salary may be low, but recognize to earn experience to position ourselves for better jobs, which means more income into the future. At our stage of our life, some of us may be wondering, hey, we will be starting our business. We want to do something because of the push and pull factors which I spoke about earlier. Setting up a company is an opportunity to grow income. The last point talks about charity. In terms of seeing others where they do not have and how we can help them, how can we help them will determine what we have extra more than them, such that now with this extra, we appreciate what we have, you see. May it be time, may it be money itself. Okay, so that's all from me. My name is Teh Yong Yuan. Okay, Dr. Teh, Mr. Teh, whatever you can call me. Here, you can LinkedIn me, connect with me. If you're interested regarding internships, you can contact me. We can talk more about Captains. It's a startup. That's all from me. Thanks a lot. I'll pass the time back to the host. I thank you so much for the patience, for extending time. Thank you.
Thank you for the amazing presentation by Dr. Teh.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Teh.
So I think we have received a lot of knowledge about financial literacy, and I think I have a future prospect about what should I do with the money, or we either can utilize it or we can put it in the long-term
Investment.
Yeah.
So
for now, we'll proceed to our Q&A section.
Very good. So there are several questions here. And of course, I will see those in the chat. Do I see those in the chat box? Can the host quickly remind me again? Sorry, I forgot.
All the questions are in the Slido, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, all the questions from the chat box.
Great. Okay. There are several questions given here. Okay. I'm looking at them. I'm trying to digest them. Besides my dinner, I'm trying to digest the questions also. One of the questions asked, in no particular order, is what to do if my income only enough for me to pay monthly bills, like insurance, phone bills, and so on. Okay? It's okay, you see or not? It's enough. That is the important point. Now, with that, we will potentially, with this question on if my income is only enough to pay monthly bills. Okay? Your income is sufficient for your expenses. Means you don't have savings. We must recognize now, how long will I keep the job? What are the upsides for the job for me to increase my income? Starting salary for graduates may not be sufficient for your monthly expenses. So, as a result, they recognize in the second year, they will potentially have an increment or find a better job with the experience they have gained. That is one way. Point number two is, of course, at night, some students go and drive Grab. Some people afterward will go and do this side hustling. So there's a way to grow your income in the immediate way. Third way is there any expenses now which I can spend later now? Do you need your insurance now or you can buy later? You see now? Can I cut down on my phone bill? Okay, so this is the first question. I think this question is sufficiently covered. If it's not, then you just tell me accordingly now. Okay. The next question talks about, you see, passive income. Why don't schools and universities educate us on earning passive income? This is a complicated manner. And we see here now, when we talk about external influences influencing how we see income, expenses, assets, and debts, our education system potentially doesn't shape us to talk about passive income that much. Are there courses in the university to do so, you see? One of the reasons is also, when we talk about passive income, it is a little bit, how I put it, you must have investments to talk about passive income one. How many of us here have investments, you see? Many of us are trying to make ends meet, you see. So, as a result, the school or the government cannot be so aggressive to talk about passive income because it will make some people or a lot of people feel, I don't have investment, you see. And those who have some, then they'll feel very nice. But they don't want to make some feel happy at the expense of others, you see. Okay? So, why don't schools talk about passive income? Passive income, another thing, also talks about risk. You see, today, we didn't go into the details greatly about investments because, hey, I say something already about how to get rich. If it doesn't work, walao eh, potentially a lot of complaints will come. Okay? So, passive income talks about taking risk. And there's no guarantee that this risk will pay off one, you see. So, of course, based on your preferences, potentially it will gravitate you to certain things you can watch on YouTube, certain links and so forth, or join the investment club, you see. So these things will not be taught specifically as a general subject, but with preferences, you will gear yourself with friends and clubs accordingly. That is how university prepares you all up. Okay? Next question is, wait, let's see this one. I see Wishong's question. Where is Wishong's? Wishong's no more. Okay. Wishong asked the most challenging question, but it's very important that we should take note. Which is more important, standard of living or quality of life in order to become a successful billionaire? To answer Wishong's question, I'm answering Wishong's question because it is an important question. We need to think about it, not only today, but every day as we accumulate wealth at work. A billionaire potentially talks about a standard of living one, Can a billionaire be happy, We ask ourselves. We don't really know. We assume that they are happy. But in their pursuit of endless wealth, they may be potentially running on a hamster in a wheel, if you know what this kind of thing. They run like a rat race. Because unlimited amount of money will never make them happy, you see. And of course, they will receive a lot of recognition and so forth. But potentially, we must recognize also what makes a person happy. Do we need to be a billionaire to be happy? A quality of life. So now, Wishong asks a question which I must answer correctly rather than like a politician. Who are successful billionaires? We ask ourselves, who are successful billionaires? Some people will say Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett. Other people will potentially talk about Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates because of their giving, you see. A quality of life now talks about, I earn for me to give, and therefore increase their quality of life accordingly. Okay? Yep. So, should I take more questions or move on?
I think we should proceed with the feedback form section. So I think thank you to Dan for explaining the question, and I think that all question is answered clear and distinct. So I think all the answer is good.
Before all of you all leave, can you guys please fill in this feedback form in the chat box?
those who have filled in the feedback form?
You guys can leave, I think. That's all for today's webinar. Thank you. Thank you for the participant for participating. Yeah. Thank you. Have a good night.
And we will end on webinar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.